at the beginning of which a battlefield can be seen. A group of soldiers trembled in fear. At that moment, there was an attack from the other side, and the soldiers are getting cut off by the attack. When one of the soldiers heard something from the leader of the rear party, he told him to send the wounded soldiers to the sorcerers and ordered the rest of the soldiers to retreat. In a labyrinth of the undead, the Geldwood soldiers are forced to fall back with their wounded when several of the numbers fall to the corpse god, a necromancer without a peer, Sir Shagrua. Edith Lugrid, the church's calamity crusher, arrives with Ricuria Lofilardo, leading his support team of fellow priests and priestesses. Shagrua faces the corpse god alone while his team remains on standby. Corpse God fends off Shagrua's attacks before converting souls of the deceased into magic from those dead whose bones are strewn about him and, to the horror of the Geldwood men contingent outside the labyrinth, from the land surrounding them. With his magic restocked, the Corpse God calls forth a dragon bound to him. Shagrua cleaves the dragon in twain with one mighty strike. He and Corpse God exchange more blows until Corpse God gathers the strewn bones into an army of armed, articulated skeletons. Shagrua recalls how his village had burned, how the villagers' souls blamed him for his demise before the Geldwood knights took him in, and how the souls of those he and Geldwood slaughtered over the years similarly denounced him. His evil eyes blaze when he informs the Corpse God that he can see all the souls that the Corpse God has sacrificed. The skeletons advanced. Shagrua disarticulated some with a fireball and dislodged the stalactites in a second, sending them crashing into the skeletons still standing. With a direct sword strike to the Corpse God's rib cage, he reveals a brain in a jar suspended by chains, Corpse God's proper form, for which he has sacrificed so many souls. All lives are my playthings, says Corpse God, much to Shagrua's ire, which he further incenses by insinuating that Shagrua enjoys his victims' resentful wails that the two of them are alike at playing the Grim Reaper. Shagrua ignores the provocation for the variegated spell that the Corpse God weaves. This is unrecognizable magic, and therefore the magic he recognizes must be stopped. Ricuria magically enhances Shagrua as he charges forward, the Calamity Crusher crushing Calamity with a spell and a final strike. Magic swallows the room when Shagrua's sword pierces the spell. A teenager replays this hazy moment from where he lies prone in an alley, sure that he cast a spell but uncertain if it activated. He opened his eyes to a gray sky and unfamiliar walls on both sides of him. His arms are frail, and his hands are small, one of which he brings to his painful, bloodied neck when speaking proves difficult. Standing, however, he can manage, so he walks out of the alley into a city square. Everything from the architecture and transportation to the clothes and the language is completely foreign to him. Takumi Karuya remotely moves his drone to get a better look at the teen, then calls someone to cancel the retrieval. Their target lives despite his throat being slit. The teen strolls as he takes in the incomprehensible signs in a video that features the idol Ryuma Kanagi. His first thought is that it must be a projection spell, but he feels no magic at work. Eventually, he sits to rest on the steps leading to Shinjuku Station. The children passing by are happy, and hail implies the country is peaceful, and then he thinks of the country he has left behind, of a memory involving an undead and children around a cooking pot. Regardless of whether he can return to that country, he hopes it will have a future. Two Shinjuku policemen greet him in the land's language, and he swiftly realizes he cannot understand them. Only he is starting to, for the more they talk, the more he understands. After all, this body's brain knows the language, inquires about the blood on his neck and shirt. The younger asks for the teenager's name. So, this is Japanese, the teenager says haltingly, his throat still strained. This body's name is Polka Shinoyama. As the policemen finally realize the severity of Polka's neck wound, Misaki Sakimiya alights on the younger's head, says she is glad that Polka is alright, grabs his hand, and sprints away. Kozuburo Arasi observes the two from a distance and asks Tsubaki Iwanami if something is up. Something's always up in Shinjuku, Iwanami replies. Once Misaki leads Polka into an alley, she introduces herself and asks if Polka remembers her. He tried to, which pains him. Misaki shakes him down to confirm that he is alive, then declares that she will kill him for a second time, wondering, like Takumi, how a crowbar to Polka's neck somehow didn't suffice the first time. Crowbar Neck now remembers Polka. He takes off running, and Misaki gives chase. Observing via his drone, Takumi sits back and asks what Misaki's client thinks about putting a hit on a 16-year-old. Still, what matters more than a client's motives is a client's money, and for the sake of that money, Polka needs to remain dead this time. Polka catches his breath inside an abandoned building, limited by his body's weak strength and almost total absence of magic. But the magic seems scarce in both air and land. The air has a paucity of magical elements, and if the land has spirits, he can hardly feel them. Without magic, he can't treat his fresh wound. Without magic, he cannot heal a fatal wound. Misaki enters the window under which Polka is sitting and flings 5 knives at him that he dodges. He uses a stray piece of pipe to parry her crowbar repeatedly, each time just barely until he can run past her, motivated by the peaceful land that children's smiles promised and the children left behind. Misaki lodged a throwing knife into his right calf. Polka rips the knife out, flings it close-shaven past Misaki's face, and limps as quickly as he can around the corner and into the first room whose door he comes across. The room has a high ceiling to accommodate the hooks and ropes hanging from it. Barrels, tubs, sacks, and other equipment litter the floor. Misaki explains that the building is infamous in her line of work. Polka lurches away, then falls when Misaki injures his right thigh as an alleged major execution ground for the Yakuza and that ghosts and gangsters haunt it. Polka's possessor retains his evil eye in a different body, affirming the possessor's suspicion that the evil eye is a power of the soul rather than anatomy. Polka, the corpse god, converts these into magic, and, with the single digit of a monstrously large skeletal hand, imposes Misaki and pins her to a pillar. Takami gasped. Corpse God's brain and the skeletal husk the corpse god once embodied. Shigrua confides in Rikuria that he is unsure if he saw his job to completion since Corpse God had succeeded in activating his spell. At the moment, the spell resembled teleportation magic. In the seconds, Shigrua spied Corpse God's soul with his evil eye. It disappeared. Rikuria kindly says that all traces of the Corpse God have disappeared from this world. According to a report from the observation unit, "You saved the world," she insisted. The Corpse God's mind has been defogged, which he informs a limp Misaki of in strong, unhindered tones. He is glad that his spell brought him to a peaceful land and that Misaki brought him to a place full of magical power, which he demonstrates by replenishing himself with the souls from the Yakuza's past. He and Misaki, he says, shall together play at being the Grim Reaper. In the beginning, the Corpse God reflects on how he had fought on Imperial battlefields as a Necromancer after his parents sold him to the Imperial Court sorcerers until the Empire fell, after which he searched for a place to live the quiet life for which he had always yearned. He came to find it in 5 youths, the oldest of whom would come to see him in a romantic light like a young woman. Their years of peaceful coexistence ended when the children's lives died on the pikes of Geldwood soldiers, who after that rejoiced, believing they had freed the children's souls from the Necromancer's enslavement. Corpse God spent the rest of the century enacting revenge on the soldiers' souls in the abandoned coal mine he and the youths had called home. Over time, the coal mine has evolved into a twisting labyrinth of corpses. With the Corpse God no longer able to die naturally, he waited for someone capable of slaying him. The prospect of his reincarnated life being short-lived is unacceptable and unthinkable. Still, neither was it thinkable for Misaki Sakamiya's life, which has nonetheless ended on the talon of Corpse God's skeletal hand. Corpse God shakes Misaki down for healing potions or anodyne enchanted items with increasing panic. His concern is not for her life, but the peaceful life he has inadvertently imperiled. Then, it hit him that he told a corpse. Now, let us continue. As Corpse God lets loose a mortified scream, Takumi Kuruya lets loose a stressed one as he struggles to process what he has just witnessed. Lisa, Clarissa, Kuraki calls him to ask why he is taking so long to update her, so he sends her clipped footage of Polka Shinoyama screaming over Misaki's corpse. A young Misaki is cosseted by her loving parents, who say her bright smile will bring happiness to others. Misaki's smile is nowhere to be found when an older Misaki watches a laughing man stab her parents to death, but he returns with the petty revenge she greets the man years later. The man recognizes her as Clarissa's pet, Zaki, the killer, and warns her that Clarissa will punish her. Misaki counters that Clarissa was the one who ordered the man's death. Whether Clarissa specified that Misaki should first torment the man with a nail gun like she is presently doing goes unmentioned. Misaki wonders if she looks as happy as the man did back then. Finally, remembering her as Sakamiya's daughter, the man assumes Misaki is doing this out of revenge. Not at all, replies Misaki, who then claims that she kills killers for fun. It happens to her that she has never tested whether killing good people is fun. The man insists he is a good person. Misaki kills him because of the lie. When a client asks Yutu-ku to kill a 16-year-old, Misaki volunteers for the job. If she can kill an innocent fellow miner like Polka, she's messed up, and kills him easily. He was about to test himself and jump off a high place when Takumi called. She arrests her fall and answers Takumi, who tells her she cannot die before she fulfills her job. She does not, and he says, the kid is walking around with a slit throat. Misaki awakens, vaguely aware that she has just had her life flash before her eyes. Polka high-fives Takumi's drone, happy that it worked. The drone sinks shamelessly when Misaki lifts her shirt to check her stomach. After being told that she has been reborn via magic, she looks at her colleagues, whose weapons are trained on her and Polka, and asks what is happening. Clarissa makes her way to the front and hugs Misaki, confirms that she is warm with life rather than cold as a corpse. Misaki has a pulse. Bracing news, indeed. Corpse God helpfully tells Misaki that she is a zombie, which leaves her more confused than ever. 40 minutes before Misaki wakes up, Takumi informs the audience that he is an all-around nice guy, based in Shinjuku, who makes a living as an information broker who sometimes helps hitmen hide bodies on the side. How could someone with such a humble and discreet life wind up in the mess he found himself in? By mess, he means Lisa's Yutukoru subordinates aiming their handguns at a violently deceased Misaki and the still living Polka. Clarissa asks Polka to explain herself, then asks Takumi what she's looking at. Takumi says the drone hovering nearby is not his doing, and must be the drone he lost control of earlier. Clarissa observes that the drone is flying without noise, something that Takumi assures her is not something that drones do. Clarissa informs the corpse god that she and her companions are Masaki's friends who came here to kill Polka and avenge Masaki, though that plan has been derailed. She notices the circular runes underneath Misaki and asks if she is still alive. Everyone is staring at him. Magic? Clarissa repeated flatly. Exactly, replies the corpse god, who says his body knows of spells like rise and arise. Spells from video games, says Clarissa. Still, matter of fact, not that the corpse god knows what video games are. Once he confirms that this country is unfamiliar with magic or spirit arts practitioners, he scrubs his magic and lamely claims that the people have just experienced a mass hallucination. Clarissa asks for a moment to think, which the corpse god grants to Takumi's surprise. In truth, Corpse God lacks a lot of plan, so the spare moment benefits him as much as it does the others. A siren wails in the near distance, a noise all too common of late, says Clarissa. Takumi confirms that the sirens are for a fire in the Shakazawa building and sends Clarissa footage from a nearby drone. Despite Clarissa's concern for the children, Clarissa assumes that they will have to leave the children's lives in the hands of the fire department, as their hands are tied. Corpse God responds that he has been burned many times and burning is not an agony that any child should experience. Clarissa instructs Takumi to lead Polka to the fire through his drone. Takumi objects that Polka could make a break for it, but that's precisely why Clarissa wants him to keep an eye on the kid. Corpse God amplifies his evil eye with magic and ascertains that the life forces of the children are still viable. He ignores Takumi's inquiries about his plan, perhaps because he acts on instinct. He raises himself with the skeletal hand, one noticed by the rubberneckers, and flings himself into the fiery emissions. 2 caretakers have already thrown themselves over a group of children. He asks the 4 spirits hovering ahead if the children were theirs. They are. He asks for the parents' aid and reveals 4 skeletons for them to possess. Onlookers spot 2 skeletons in the window below, one of which cradles a little girl. The girl opens her eyes and sees her dead father, who smiles before him, and the other parents pass the children to the corpse of God's skeletal hand outside the window. Once the hand deposits the children and caretakers on the ground, the firefighters rush to attend them. Takumi sighs as the corpse god removes himself from the rooftops. As far as Clarissa's idea of peace is concerned, money is her go-to suggestion for achieving it. She also asks Polka who he is, and then amends herself. What does Polka want? What's Polka's goal in Shinjuku? Clarissa offers to assist him in that endeavor because she also happens to be Shinjuku's mediator. She has already concluded that Polka is no longer Polka, inwardly speaking, which incentivizes her. She assigns Misaki and Takumi to help Polka adapt to life in Japan. Isn't it funny that a mentally over a century-year-old corpse got reincarnated as the 16th Polka Shinoyama human body? Okay, let the joke be a joke, and subscribe to my channel.